Hi, my name's Gary Ellerd-Elliott. I'm the founder of 3E Asset Management and I'm a Qandor member. And today I'd like to talk about my deal, the Wheatsheaf Hotel. The Wheatsheaf Hotel, as you can see from the picture, it was an old coaching inn that had been closed for 4 years. We came across it early part of 2017. We offered on it, but we actually missed out. Now, the property, it was approximately 10,000 square feet. So what you can't see behind the picture there is there's three barns behind the actual main building that was sort of derelict or semi-derelict. Now, the site actually came with planning permission for 8 units. Now, that was to convert the existing hotel and the barns into 6 apartments, and then to actually put 2 new builds in the car park out the back. So I've been a property investor since 2006. I built a portfolio of buy-to-lets. Over a 2-year period, I bought 45 units. I also owned a lettings business, and I've done a number of small projects, single unit flips. I've also sourced for other investors, and I've JV'd with other investors on small projects. This case study, the reason I wanted to talk about it is because actually it's threw up a lot of challenges. It's been 4 years since time frame. And the main issues came around understanding local planning policy, the importance of getting agreements confirmed in writing with planning officers and conservation officers, and also understanding that actually sometimes less is more. And I think the big takeaway from this project for me was the actual spend more time at the front end planning it and planning the right scheme, as obviously this will save time in the long run. So how did we purchase the site? Well, we actually acquired it via a local agent. As I said earlier, we'd previously been outbid on it, but the sale fell through. And it was quite interesting. I was actually driving past it whilst the sign was being put back up for sale. So I actually pulled my car over, phoned the agent and said, what's going on? He said, the buyer has been dragging his heels. The sellers have got really annoyed with him. And we said, oh, okay, look, our offer's still available, still on the table. Within, I think, 48 hours, we'd sort of agreed to go ahead and buy it at what we'd offered previously. So it just goes to show that sometimes, just because you miss out first time, make sure you still revisit sites until they're fully sold. So this is what it looked like when we bought it. The previous owners had run it as a hotel and as a sort of wedding venue, but the locals again kicked off when they'd asked to do late licenses for weddings. They wanted to do a 1 o'clock license, got refused. So they just shut it down and said it wasn't a viable operation. They put the planning in for 8 units and that was it. So the building dates back from about the 18th century. There's a few additions on the back.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the free content. My name is Matt Siddell. I started Qandor in 2017. In 2020, we launched a property academy called Tropolis. If you want to know how you can come and join our fantastic network and work with the wonderful people that we help and support, then click the link below and book your call with me today.
So this is the planning it came with when we bought it. Now you'll see the main building is at the top of the picture, and then you've got the barns down the right-hand side, and you can see the 2 new builds. So one in the centre and one to the far left. And then you can see a huge area for car parking, landscaping, communal gardens. That was the bit we saw it as it was underdeveloped, and we thought it's, whoever took it on and sold it, you're going to have to then set up a management company to maintain it. So really, we just felt it wasn't a good use of the land. But obviously, we were aware there was the boundary. So the boundary ran, if you can see the bottom of the small property on the left-hand side, there, the line of their garden, that's where the village boundary ran through. So as you can see, everything the other south of it was classed as outside of the village development boundary, hence why they were doing it as car parking and as a garden. So what we proposed was, as you can see, 4 big units out back in the garden, and then we were going to keep the main pub as the 6 units, but we tried to work it so that they were actually not apartments as such, because from speaking with the the agent at the time, they were like, well, apartments probably won't sell. But what we tried to do was we wanted to keep the apartment scheme, so to speak, because it had already been approved. Try and get the 4 units out the back approved, and then we would go back in to change the front apartments, more tailor houses, etc. And as I say, we felt this was a better use of the land. We felt that it fitted in with what had been developed in the village further up the road. When we spoke to the case officer, she actually gave us the option to withdraw, and instead of giving us a refusal. So that's what we did. We withdrew the application. The day we actually submitted the planning, within 24 hours, we had 26 objections from the local residents, the parish, and it transpired that there was it's a development boundary within the village that actually cut across the car park of the Wheatsheaf. And we'd been led to believe that, it's not a problem, the car park had been built outside of the development boundary, so obviously precedent had been set, you'll get your planning. And then obviously when we had all the objections and we started doing a bit of further digging, what it transpired is most of the land around the village and surrounding villages is owned by the Biggin estate. And basically they're sitting on a lot of land and they've got a lot of ransom strips into the land, that if someone breaks any of the development boundaries around any of the local villages, their plan is to sell the land to big developers. So basically all the villagers are so against, because they don't want their village obviously being surrounded by persimmons and barracks and all that kind of stuff. So that was a massive learning curve. And it was also, from our point of view, understanding that getting on the wrong side of parish is not the best thing to do. So we ended up having to have a meeting with parish, which was an interesting exercise, shall we say. But eventually we came away with what we put forward as planning eventually was a 5-unit scheme, which parish fully supported, actually wrote a letter of support for us. And that's what we actually then built out. Sometimes I say less is more, because actually the GDV was actually higher on the 5 units than it was on the 8-unit we're planning. Obviously, the 10-unit would have been more, but the reality was we were never going to get it. So as you can see from the scheme, what we did is we actually divided the plot on a linear process. So what we did was the plot on the left-hand side is a 4/5 bed. It's 2,800 square feet of internal area, and then another 450 feet between double garage. The Wheatsheaf, we just kept it as one house. So the Wheatsheaf we turned into a 5-bed, 5-ensuite family home. So it's an amazing property. So it's 4,200 square feet, and then it's got the full garden out the back. And then on the right-hand side, we demolished what was the old kitchen block to create an entrance into a courtyard for parking. And then what we did was, so the front unit, which we call plot 5, is a 3-bed and forms part of one of the old barns. We've then got a middle unit, which is a 2-bed, which is just under 1,000 square feet. And then the back unit is a 4-bed, and that's around about 2,100 square feet. Each plot has its own separate garden, there's no communal area, and we can sell every bit off and not have to set up a management company and maintain any of it. As I said, when we presented this to the parish, they loved it, they fully supported it, they even wrote a letter of support, which at the time the case officer, when the application went in, was actually shocked by. Because she said, how do you go from 26 to then having actually the parish and nobody objecting? The lesson learned there was, in the military they call it winning hearts and minds, and it's very apt. You're building in people's villages, etc. And I think sometimes developers go in, and we were guilty of this at the beginning, of not even interested in just looking at the plot, going, right, we're going to fill it up, get what we can on it, without engaging. And I think we learned by engaging by them, by getting them on board, asking them what they wanted, what would be acceptable, they're a lot more supportive, and it saves you a lot of time. It was 2 years before we even put a spade in the ground, and we were hoping to be in and out of this in 2 years. So, we had all the costs involved of actually staying, holding costs, etc., whilst we renegotiated all the planning, etc. Things worth noting is make sure you have a clear plan for the site before you buy it. I think, again, this was our first big development. We were led by a few professionals that we brought in to help as our power team, and they sort of, for the first year, really drove the project. So they brought in the architects that they knew, they brought in the planning consultant they knew, and very much me and my business partner on this, because we have other business interests, we were sort of on the periphery on it of a little bit. And obviously, we just let them get on with it. But what became quite apparent was they had their own agenda and were taking it down their own path. And obviously, when we got the when we withdrew, we took the decision to actually change the whole team, and we took on a lot more of an active role in it. And I think if you're doing this thing, you've got to be the leader of it. You can't hand it over to other people. So, but by changing the development to houses as opposed to apartments, we increased the GDV by approximately 300,000. And at the time, we didn't know it, but that was probably a saving grace for us because of what has happened since. As I say, we wasted nearly a year going down the wrong route with the 10-unit scheme. Obviously, as I said, upset the locals in the process. So again, the key lesson is, engage with the locals, get them on side, get their full support, and obviously, think about the site, from a logistics point of view, or, sometimes trying to cram more in doesn't work, although, the numbers look nice, but in reality, is it really going to be something that people are going to want to live in? And does it complement the area? And, who is your target market for the properties in that area? So we learned a lot. So this is the back. Big picture on the left is the back of plot 3. This is the 4-bed. The one in the top right-hand corner is the front of plot 1. So that's the 4/5-bed. And then the bottom right picture is the actual main Wheatsheaf property from the north angle. So you've got the entrance door. You can see, obviously, it is an L shape, but it's got a bit on the other side that you can't really see. So it's more of a T-shaped property. So these were some of the interior CGIs we had done. When we purchased it, obviously our predicted costs were, so we bought it for £725,000. Transactions costs were around about 40,000. Our build cost that was confirmed, obviously when we went to tender with the main contractor, was 1.38 million. Professional fees were 90,000 because we had to have a load of surveys done, archaeology. We had to have 2 back surveys done because of the length of time it had taken to get from planning to actual build. We've gone through 2 seasons. So obviously the predicted performance, obviously costs were 2,335. Our GDV was estimated at 3.1. So we had a profit of 765,000 in the project. So our profit on cost was 32.8, and our profit against GDV was 24.7. And the time frame, as we said at the beginning, we hope to have it done in 24 months. If only, shall we say. So how did the numbers stack up? So literally, as I said, total costs were 2,335,000. The funding we required was 1.945 million. Equity of debt at 5.89. So literally 645 is what we used to purchase, borrow to purchase. So our development finance was 1.3 at 6%. And me and my business partner put in 440,000 out of our own money. And then obviously the profit was 765. However, as we say, the best laid plans, etc. So the cost of getting things wrong can really impact your profit. And this is where this project has been a real learning curve for myself, my business partner, and our team. Basically, we lost a year at the front end. So obviously, all that time we've got holding costs. We're paying interest on the purchase costs, all that kind of stuff. We lost a lot of time resolving a roof issue. So on plot 5, which was the old barn part of the development, it had a Collie Western roof on it. And when we originally put planning in, we had no intention of touching the roof because we thought it was sound. From our initial inspections, the roof looked okay. But when the building warranty inspector and the building regs inspector came out, they weren't so happy with it. And it meant that we had to go back to the conservation officer and the planning officer and say that we've been told we've got to remove the roof. Obviously, it's Collie Western slate. It's material that is in very short supply. This is going to push the project way back. is there any way, you've said that the Wheatsheaf is your main heritage asset for the development, the barns and that you weren't really concerned with, can we put a substitute, a Collie Western lookalike product on the barn just to make sure that we stay on time and in cost and all this kind of stuff? To which we met was a blank no. It has to be Collie Western. We don't care how long it takes you to find it. We don't care what the cost implication is. It's remaining as Collie Western. Again, we challenged them. We fought them. We got other heritage guys in to actually have a look at it. Refused at every stage. And again, that was a 10-month battle, shall we say. So in the end, that we had to take the view of we can't hold off. So what we did was we put a temporary roof whilst we waited for the Collie Western to be mined for the roof. So that roof, all in all, it was 105 square meters, cost us the best part of 100 grand. So yeah, it was a painful lesson. When our architects submitted plans, all he said was on those barns was that we were patching and repairing when necessary. We wouldn't be actually removing the roofs, and that's what they held us to. So they said you either put in a new planning application, otherwise you're following your line. It has to be like for like. So yeah, a lot of lessons learned. And again, they could have been, we could have highlighted them at the beginning and planned accordingly. But a lesson I've learned is you don't know what you don't know, and that's been quite evident. So where did it all come out at the end? So predicted cost, we predicted 2,335,000, and as you can see, there was quite a big jump in the final costs. And as I say, a lot of that was down to the roof, COVID hitting, delay in supply of materials, an increase in cost of materials, interest costs, because obviously we've had it for 4 years, so nearly 48 months as opposed to 24 months. We have had a little bit of acceleration because the GDV has actually gone up by 245,000. And that's a little bit because of the market, but also as well as the properties. When the agents looked at them off the plans, so when they actually walked around the finished article, they said, they were worth more, not because of any growth, but just the quality of what we'd provided. The profit's shrunk a bit, but we're still in profit, even with everything that's gone on. Yeah, so as you can see there, we've had a profit on cost drop down from 32.8 to 17.8, so a 15% drop, and obviously a 9% drop in profit to GDV. And as you can see there, the time frame has really gone out. And we're still in the process of selling, so we're not fully out of it yet, but we are progressing on that. Okay, so the key takeaways for me from the whole project is engage with all key stakeholders and clarify everyone's position regarding the proposal before submission. And what I mean by that is engage with the locals, the parish, actually the local community, agents, making sure that your team fully understand what you're trying to do and present it in a way that is going to be seen by the locals as the right way is a big lesson. Yeah, don't argue with the planners, even if you think you are right. And this is the lesson: is we felt we were right, especially on the barn roof. But at the end of the day, they have all the power, but it costs them nothing to delay you. It costs you time and money, and so if we'd taken a hit early on and just gone, okay, fine, we'll put Collie on it and just go with it, yeah, we probably would have saved some time and money. But even when things you think are going wrong, just stay focused on the solution. I think sometimes developing can be quite a lonely business, and you can get rather bogged down when things aren't going the right way and things are flying at you from all angles. It's just sometimes taking a step back and just looking at it and going, okay, deal with each thing individually and always focus on that there is a solution for it. And as we found with the roof, there was a solution for it. It was just one we didn't want to take at the time. But as more time progressed, it actually became the only solution we could move forward with. So that was a real lesson. Now, I know David Kemp is a Qandor member. It was actually how I found him. really thanked him for advising us on the planning issue regarding the route, because obviously we were looking to take it down to get an for an inspector to look at it, take it to appeal. But David sort of said to us, look, at the end of the day, who's it going to cost? It's costing you guys time, it's costing us time, it's costing you money, and there is no guarantee you will win the appeal. So he put a really, objective view on it from, a vast knowledge base he's got on both the legal side and on planning, etc. So a massive thank you to him. If you'd like to get in touch with me, obviously my website is www.3eassets.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn there on the link, or you can just email me direct at gary@3eassets.co.uk. You can also find a bit more about the project in the Qandor magazine, January 2021, on page 78. There I go into a little bit more detail about dealing with the non-designated heritage assets, the issue we had with the barn and the roof. So you can find out a little bit more detail there in the article. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Qandor for allowing me the opportunity to our case study. And if anyone's got any thoughts or wants to ask any more questions, feel free to get in contact. But again, thank you very much for your time.
So if you enjoyed this video, why not check out some of our other videos? I recently interviewed lots of fantastic people. There's loads of good content in there. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video.